Celeste Harrington's hand trembled as she gripped her desk. Not from weakness, but from a word she hadn't heard in years. Boyfriend. Her daughter stood in front of her, shoulders back, eyes steady. Serene had never asked for anything boldly. She studied quietly, obeyed rules, and kept her life small enough to fit inside her mother's expectations. But today, something was different. I want you to meet someone important, Serene said. Celeste felt her chest tighten. She hated surprises. Surprises meant losing control, and control was the only thing that kept her world from collapsing. She built an empire by eliminating uncertainty. Every contract signed, every decision made, every relationship measured, all of it calculated. A boyfriend, Celeste repeated, her voice flat. Serene nodded. His name is Marcus. He's kind. He's smart. And I love him. That last word hit harder than Celeste expected. Love. The thing she spent decades avoiding. The thing that destroyed her family before she even understood what family meant. She wanted to say no. She wanted to tell Serene that love was dangerous, that people leave, that trust is a luxury only fools afford. But she saw something in her daughter's eyes she hadn't seen before, hope. Celeste leaned back in her chair, fingers tapping the glass desk. Saturday. Dinner. Here. Serene blinked. Really? Don't make me regret it. Serene left the office quickly, before her mother could change her mind. The moment the door closed, Celeste's composure cracked. She opened the bottom drawer of her desk and pulled out a small, faded photograph. A boy with kind eyes stared back at her. Her younger brother. The one who disappeared 30 years ago. The one she never stopped looking for. She touched his face through the glass, her throat tight. I couldn't protect you, she whispered. But I won't let anyone hurt her. Across the mansion, Darius Cole stood near the security monitors, watching Celeste through the office camera. He'd worked for her 17 years, long enough to know when she was afraid, and tonight she was terrified. He pulled out his phone and stared at an old message he'd saved for 2 decades, a message from a man who begged him to keep a secret. Darius closed his eyes. Saturday's going to change everything, he muttered. He just didn't know how much. Marcus Ellison didn't own much, but the wooden necklace around his neck had saved his life once, and he never took it off. He stood in front of his bedroom mirror, adjusting the only dress shirt he owned. It was wrinkled near the collar, but it was clean. That had to count for something. His mother, Mara, leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, watching him with quiet concern. You nervous? She asked. Terrified, Marcus admitted. Mara smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. She'd raised him alone in a neighborhood where survival meant learning fast and trusting slow. Marcus grew up fixing things, engines, radios, broken bikes, because mechanical problems didn't lie. People did. When he was 16, he almost made the worst mistake of his life. He was walking home late one night when a group of older guys called him over. They were laughing, passing something around, and one of them said, "You look smart. Come hang with us." Marcus knew what hanging with them meant. He'd seen kids go down that road. Some never came back. But before he could answer, a hand grabbed his shoulder. A man with tired eyes and a soft voice pulled him aside. Go home, kid. Don't become what your environment tries to make you. Marcus tried to thank him, but the man pressed something into his palm. A wooden necklace, old and scratched, with a strange burn mark near the edge. Wear it. Remember this moment. Then the man disappeared into the night. Marcus came home shaking. His mother saw the necklace and froze. Her face went pale like she'd seen a ghost. Where did you get that? She whispered. A man gave it to me. He said it would protect me. Mara's hands trembled. She touched the necklace carefully, like it might break. Some people are meant to stay mysteries, she said quietly. But if he gave this to you, he saw something worth saving. She never explained what she meant, and Marcus never asked. Now, years later, he touched the necklace and whispered, "Whoever you were, thank you." His phone buzzed. A text from Serene. Asterisk, she said yes. Saturday. I'm so nervous. Asterisk. Marcus smiled and typed back, asterisk me too, but we'll be okay. Asterisk. He didn't know that the necklace around his neck carried a story 30 years in the making. He didn't know that the woman he was about to meet had been searching for the man who made it. And he didn't know that Saturday night would shatter everything he thought he understood about his life. Mara watched him leave, her hand pressed against her chest. Please, she whispered to no one. Let this be different. The moment Celeste's eyes locked onto the necklace, the room stopped breathing. Marcus had arrived exactly on time. Serene rushed out to meet him before her mother could see him alone, her heart racing with every step. She grabbed his hand, squeezed it twice, their signal that everything would be okay. Inside, Celeste stood in the dining room like a statue. Her posture was perfect, her expression controlled. She'd spent the entire day preparing. Not the food, but herself. This was a test. A business evaluation. She would assess him the way she assessed every contract that crossed her desk. Serene led Marcus through the front door. Mom, this is Marcus. Marcus stepped forward, extending his hand respectfully. Good evening, Ms. Harrington. Thank you for having me. Celeste's gaze dropped, and everything stopped. Her eyes fixed on the wooden necklace hanging from his neck. The carved edges, the small burn mark near the corner, the exact shape she'd memorized as a child. Her brother made that necklace when he was 14. He burned it accidentally with a soldering iron while trying to smooth the edges. He wore it every single day, until the night he vanished. Celeste's chest tightened. Her breath came in short, shallow gasps. The room tilted. She stumbled backward, grabbing the edge of a chair to steady herself. Mom! Serene's voice cracked with panic. What's wrong? Celeste couldn't answer. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Her hands shook violently. Marcus stepped back, confused. Ms. Harrington, are you okay? Darius appeared in the doorway, his face hard. He'd been watching from the security room. The moment he saw the necklace on the monitor, he knew this night would end in truth or tragedy. He stepped closer, his voice low. Ma'am, we need to talk. Celeste's voice came out as a broken whisper. No, ma'am. Say it here. Her eyes burned with tears she'd held back for 30 years. Say it in front of everyone. Darius hesitated. He glanced at Marcus, then at Serene, then back at Celeste. Your brother didn't run away on his own, he said quietly. The words hit like a gunshot. Serene froze. Brother? What brother? Celeste's knees buckled. She sank into the chair, her face buried in her hands. Marcus stood paralyzed, his hand instinctively reaching for the necklace. Darius continued, his voice heavy with guilt. I helped him escape. 30 years ago. I was a junior officer then. I found him in an alley, bleeding, ribs broken. He begged me not to tell you. He said your father would come after you next. Celeste's head snapped up. You knew? You knew he was alive and you said nothing? He made me promise, Darius said. He didn't want you in danger. Celeste's scream tore through the mansion. It was raw, guttural, decades of grief finally breaking free. Serene dropped to her knees beside her mother, wrapping her arms around her. For the first time in her life, Celeste didn't pull away. Marcus stood frozen, staring at the necklace. Where did you get that? Celeste whispered, her voice shaking. Marcus swallowed hard. A man gave it to me when I was 16. He said it would protect me. Celeste closed her eyes, tears streaming down her face. That was my brother. Your brother didn't run away on his own, Darius said, and the air in the room turned to ice. Serene stared at her mother, trying to process what she was hearing. You had a brother? Celeste nodded, her voice barely audible. He was 2 years younger than me. Sweet, kind. He tried to protect me from our father. She wiped her tears with trembling hands. When I was 17, I left. I told him to come with me, but he said he wasn't ready. 2 weeks later, he was gone. No note, no call. Nothing. She looked at Darius, her eyes filled with betrayal. I spent 30 years thinking I abandoned him. Darius stepped forward, his jaw tight. You didn't abandon him. You saved yourself. And he wanted it that way. He took a deep breath, his voice heavy with guilt. I was 23, fresh out of the academy. I found him one night behind a gas station, face swollen, blood on his shirt. He could barely stand. Serene covered her mouth, horrified. Darius continued. I asked him what happened. He said his father found out he'd been helping Celeste send money. He said if he stayed, his father would use him to get to you. Celeste sobbed openly now, her body shaking. He begged me not to tell you, Darius said quietly. He said, if she knows I'm alive, she'll come back. And he'll kill her. Marcus felt his chest tighten. This wasn't just a story anymore. This was real grief, real loss. Darius pulled out his phone and scrolled to an old saved message. He contacted me once, 22 years ago, just once. He read aloud. I gave it to a boy who needed hope. Tell Celeste I tried to be the man she believed I could be. Celeste's breath hitched. He gave the necklace to Marcus? Darius nodded. He moved around constantly, changed his name, tried to disappear, but he never forgot what it felt like to be saved. Marcus's voice was barely a whisper. He saved me that night. I was about to make the worst choice of my life. He pulled me aside and told me I was worth more. Celeste looked at him, her eyes red and swollen. He gave you the one thing he had left. Serene reached for Marcus's hand, tears streaming down her face. Darius's voice dropped. There's more. Celeste's head snapped up. What do you mean? Your brother wasn't just running from your father, Darius said slowly. He was running to someone. Celeste's voice cracked. Who? Darius turned to Marcus. A woman named Mara Ellison. The room went silent. Marcus staggered backward. That's my mother's name. Darius nodded. Your mother and Celeste's brother were together once. She was his first love. He stayed with her briefly when he escaped. Marcus felt the floor shift beneath him. Are you saying? No, Darius interrupted. He wasn't your father. Your mother never had a child with him. But she kept one thing of his. The necklace. Marcus's eyes filled with tears. She gave it to me when I needed it most. Celeste stood, her legs unsteady. She walked slowly toward Marcus and placed her hand on his shoulder. He saved you, she whispered, because no one saved him. Marcus couldn't speak. He just nodded. Serene stood between them, her heart breaking for both. And then Darius said the words that changed everything. There's one more thing you need to know. Your brother didn't just disappear. He died. Your brother didn't just save Marcus that night, Darius said. He died 3 days later. Celeste screamed. It wasn't a gasp or a sob. It was a raw, animal sound, 30 years of grief finally tearing free. She collapsed against the table, her body shaking violently. Serene rushed to her side, holding her mother as she broke apart. Marcus stood frozen, the necklace suddenly feeling heavier than it ever had before. Darius's voice was quiet, steady. He was tracked down. People from the old neighborhood, people who worked for your father. They found him 2 towns over. Celeste could barely breathe. How? Someone recognized him at a bus station. They cornered him in an alley, beat him, left him in the street. Celeste buried her face in her hands, her whole body trembling. Darius continued, his own voice cracking now. He didn't make it to the hospital, but in his final hours, he made one phone call. He paused, looking at Marcus. He called your mother. Marcus felt his knees weaken. What did he say? Darius pulled out his phone again, scrolling to another saved message. This one from Mara, sent years ago when Darius first tracked her down. He read it aloud. He told me, if you ever meet a kid who's lost, give him the necklace. Tell him someone believed in him. He said it 3 times, like he needed me to promise. Marcus's vision blurred with tears. That's why she cried when I came home with it. She knew what it meant. Celeste looked up at him, her face devastated. He couldn't save himself, so he made sure someone else could be saved. Serene reached for both of them, her own tears falling freely. Marcus touched the necklace, his voice breaking. I never knew. My mom never told me the whole story. She was protecting you, Darius said. She didn't want you to carry the weight of a dead man's last wish. Celeste stood slowly, wiping her face. She walked toward Marcus, her movements careful, deliberate. For the first time, she looked at him without walls, without judgment, without the armor she'd built to survive. I'm sorry, she whispered. I judged you the moment you walked through that door. I didn't see you. I only saw what I was afraid of. Marcus shook his head. You don't need to apologize. Yes, I do. Celeste's voice cracked. I became cold because I thought it would protect me. I controlled everything because I was terrified of losing anyone again. She looked at Serene, her eyes filled with regret. I made you afraid to bring someone home. I made you feel like love was something to hide. Serene hugged her mother tightly. You didn't know, Mom. You were just trying to survive. Celeste held her daughter, then reached out and pulled Marcus into the embrace. The three of them stood together, grief and healing tangled in the same moment. Darius watched from the doorway, his own guilt finally lifting. After a long silence, Celeste pulled back and looked at Marcus with softened eyes. If my brother trusted you with his last act of kindness, she said quietly, then I will too. Marcus's voice was thick with emotion. I don't want anything from your family, Ms. Harrington. I just love your daughter, and I want to protect her. Celeste closed her eyes, fresh tears falling. Those were the last words my brother said to me, that he wanted to protect me. She placed her hand over Marcus's, where it rested on the necklace. He's still protecting people. Through you. But then Marcus asked the question no one expected. Ms. Harrington, where is your father now? Celeste's face hardened. He's still alive, and he has no idea I know the truth. Celeste stood up, wiped her tears, and said the words Darius had feared for 30 years. I'm going to see him. Serene's eyes went wide. Mom, no. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do. Celeste's voice was steady now, filled with something she hadn't felt in years, clarity. I've spent 30 years running from him, building walls, becoming cold so I'd never feel what he made me feel. I'm done running. Marcus stepped forward. Then I'm going with you. Celeste looked at him, surprised. You don't have to. Your brother saved my life, Marcus said firmly. The least I can do is stand beside his sister. Darius crossed his arms. I'm driving. This is my burden too. The three of them left within the hour. Serene stayed behind, pacing the mansion, praying nothing would go wrong. The drive was tense. Celeste stared out the window, her hands clenched in her lap. Marcus sat in the back, silent, the necklace cold against his chest. Finally, Celeste spoke. My father was a drunk, a gambler, a man who believed fear was the same as respect. Her voice was flat, emotionless, like she was reading facts from a file. He hit my mother until she stopped fighting back. Then he started on us. My brother took most of it. He'd step in front of me, take the blows, tell me to run. Marcus felt his chest tighten. When I was 17, I left. I stole money from his wallet and bought a bus ticket. I told my brother to come with me, but he said he wasn't ready. Her voice cracked. I thought he was being stubborn. I didn't realize he was buying me time. Darius glanced at her in the rearview mirror. He knew your father would come after you if you both disappeared, so he stayed. He made himself the target. Celeste nodded, tears streaming down her face. And I let him. Marcus leaned forward. You were 17. You did what you had to do to survive. So did he, Celeste whispered. But I got to live. He didn't. Her father stood, trying to intimidate her the way he used to. But Celeste didn't flinch. You don't scare me anymore, she said quietly. You're just a sad, broken man who destroyed the only people who ever loved you. She pulled out the photograph of her brother and placed it on the table. He gave his last act of kindness to a stranger. He died trying to be better than you. That's his legacy. She leaned closer, her voice steady. You have none. Her father's face twisted, but he said nothing. There was nothing left to say. Celeste turned and walked away. Marcus and Darius followed. As they drove off, Celeste broke down. But this time it wasn't grief. It was release. Serene held her mother's hand from the back seat. Marcus watched through the rearview mirror, still holding the necklace. And for the first time in 30 years, Celeste felt free. 3 weeks later, Celeste invited Marcus and Serene to the mansion again. But this time, the dining room felt different. The massive table was gone. In its place was a smaller one, round, with only 4 chairs. The crystal glasses were replaced with simple ones. The cold, formal lighting had been softened. When Marcus walked in, Celeste didn't wait for him to extend his hand. She hugged him. It was the first real hug she'd given anyone in years. "Thank you for coming," she said quietly. Marcus smiled. "Of course." Serene watched her mother with quiet amazement. The woman who once stood like stone now moved with warmth. The walls were gone. They sat down together, and for the first time the conversation wasn't careful. It was real. Celeste talked about her brother, not the tragedy but the person. His laugh, his terrible jokes, the way he used to fix broken radios and give them to neighbors who couldn't afford new ones. He had this way of making people feel like they mattered, Celeste said, her voice soft. Even when he had nothing, he gave everything. Marcus listened, his hand resting on the necklace. "I think I got that from him. I fix engines now. Motorcycles, cars, anything broken." Celeste's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't hide them anymore. He would have loved that. She reached into her pocket and pulled out an old, worn notebook. The cover was faded, the pages yellowed with age. "Darius found this in storage. It belonged to my brother. I want you to have it." Marcus took it carefully, his hands trembling. He opened the first page. Inside were sketches, drawings of the necklace from different angles, notes about wood types, carvings, designs, a list of things he wanted to do someday, places he wanted to see, people he wanted to help. Marcus turned to the last page. The handwriting was shaky, like it had been written in a hurry. It read, "If I can save one person, maybe I mattered." Marcus's voice broke as he read it aloud. Celeste covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Serene reached across the table, holding both their hands. "You did matter," Marcus whispered, staring at the page. "You saved me. And because you saved me, I'm here. I'm alive. I'm loved." He looked up at Celeste. "You're proof he mattered. Your daughter is proof. Every person you help now is proof." Celeste broke down completely, but this time, she let herself be held. Serene wrapped her arms around her mother, and Marcus placed his hand over theirs. After a long silence, Celeste pulled back and wiped her face. "I need to say something," she said, her voice steady but soft. She turned to Serene. "I tried to control your life because I was terrified of losing you the way I lost him. I thought if I kept you close, if I made every decision, you'd be safe." Her voice cracked. "But I see now. I was losing you by holding too tight." Serene's eyes filled with tears. "You didn't lose me, Mom. You just found me again." Celeste smiled through her tears, then turned to Marcus. "I don't care where you come from or what you don't have. You have something I forgot how to build, courage to love without fear." She reached out and placed her hand over his. "I'm proud my daughter chose you." Marcus couldn't speak. He just nodded, his throat too tight for words. Darius stood in the doorway, watching quietly. For the first time in 30 years, the weight he'd carried was gone. Celeste looked at him and smiled. "Thank you for keeping your promise. And for finally breaking it." Darius nodded, his own eyes wet. That night, the 4 of them sat together. Not as strangers, not as a test, but as family. And the necklace that once represented escape now represented healing. 6 months later, Celeste stood in front of a building she never thought she'd create. The sign above the door read, "The Harrington Foundation, in memory of those who save." It wasn't a business. It wasn't about power or control. It was about second chances. The foundation helped at-risk youth escape violence. It provided housing, education, mentorship, everything her brother never had. Marcus stood beside her wearing a volunteer badge. He spent his weekends there, sharing his story, teaching kids how to fix engines, reminding them they were worth saving. Serene worked there too, organizing outreach programs, connecting families to resources. Darius oversaw security, but his role had changed. He wasn't protecting walls anymore. He was protecting hope. On opening day, a crowd gathered. Former students, community leaders, families who'd been helped. Celeste stood at the podium, her voice steady. This foundation exists because one man chose kindness over bitterness. He had every reason to give up, but instead, he gave a stranger a gift that would change his life. She looked at Marcus, who stood in the front row, the necklace visible around his neck. That stranger is here today, and because of one act of courage, dozens of lives have been saved. The crowd applauded. After the ceremony, Celeste walked to a glass case near the entrance. Inside was the wooden necklace, carefully preserved, with a plaque beneath it. It read, "One act of kindness can echo forever." Celeste touched the glass, her fingers tracing the outline of the carving. "You did it, little brother," she whispered. "You saved us all." Marcus stood beside her, Serene's hand in his. "He's still here," Marcus said quietly. "Every time someone walks through that door, he's here." Celeste nodded, a peaceful smile on her face. For the first time in 30 years, she wasn't running. She wasn't hiding. She wasn't afraid. She was free. The three of them walked outside together, into the sunlight, into a future no longer haunted by the past. And somewhere, in a place beyond grief and pain, a boy with kind eyes smiled, because his last wish had come true. He mattered. Sometimes justice doesn't roar. Sometimes it's a quiet wooden necklace, passed from broken hands to hopeful ones, reminding us that the people we lose never truly leave. They just become the courage we carry forward.